That's why we named everything Charbay, because Karakasevic distilleries just doesn't fit on the label.
No, just one too many characters, huh?
Oh my God, yeah. You know, filling in the bubbles in school was always fun. Remember that shit? Yeah.
This is episode 193 of Bourbon Pursuit. I'm one of your hosts, Kenny, and let's run through just a little bit of the news. The 4th annual American Whiskey Convention is going to be taking place on April 5th in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Over 250 American whiskeys will be available for you to try, and you can network with other industry peers and fans just like you. Find out more at AmericanWhiskeyConvention.com. Thank you to everybody that joined Ryan and I at this past week's Louisville Bourbon Society meeting. It was great to meet a lot of you and share some of those Pursuit Series bottles with you as well. It was also kind of a reality check for us because we didn't realize about 10% of the room had no idea what a podcast was. So that's a call to action for all you young whippersnappers out there. If you've got relatives getting into whiskey, instead of telling them, let's show them how to subscribe. Another great article came out this week from America's favorite whiskey personality, Wade Woodard. He uses some scientific methods and blind tastings to see if he could create a better version of barrel-finished bourbons using a mixture of ingredients in his own liquor cabinet. He takes on the likes of Angel's Envy port finish, Bellmead cognac finish, and this year's Parker's Heritage Curacao finish. And he does it with his own blends. You can read all the results at tater-talk.com. Now, today's episode features Charbay. This is one that I kind of stumbled across because it has an interesting story at the end of the day, and I was first introduced to their whiskey like many people get their first steps, and that's at a tasting event. I remember getting this crazy, funky taste, and I couldn't believe what it was. Hops and whiskey? Like, no way, but it was totally way, like very way. So you're gonna love it. We have a new Patreon reward levels available, and they're starting at just $1 per month. Go check it out at patreon.com/Bourbon Pursuit, because really it's this community that funds this podcast and keeps it going. So thank you to everybody out there that is a Patreon supporter today, and I challenge you at least to go and check out Patreon and help support this as much as you can. Now, listen up to Joe over at Barrel Bourbon, and then as usual, we got Fred Minnick to round us out with Above the Char.
Hi, this is Joe Beatrice from Barrel Craft Spirits. We blend and bottle at cask strength, just as nature intended. Lift your spirits with Barrel Bourbon.
I'm Fred Minnick, and this is Above the Char. As you listen to this, I am likely sitting in a room with more than 40 tasters from all over the world. Some are high-end distributors, others are elite bartenders, and there are a few journalists in the room. But all come from several different types of spirits backgrounds. We are the judges of the San Francisco World Spirits Competition. For me, I've been a judge for almost 10 years, and it's one of my greatest honors. It's my Super Bowl of the spirits world. I get to taste with the very best in the world, the most elite palates, people who can analyze a tequila and tell you where it came from. And the same with scotch and, dare I say, vodkas. Yes, there are actual vodka experts, and I actually do respect them. I'm kind of the bourbon guy, as you can imagine. And every year, I get most of the bourbons truckloaded through my panels, and we taste them, and we decide the fate of what wins or what gets a gold or gets a double gold. And we do all of this blind, so we don't know what we're tasting. So when you see a gold medal or a double gold or best bourbon, you can have a guarantee that there was no bias, no perceived bias that we had when we were tasting it. In years past, Knob Creek has won, Four Roses has won, some of the Buffalo Trace Antique collections has won. Last year, Henry McKenna, Bottle and Bond won. And you really never know, because a tasting is how people are tasting that day. Someone may have had a cold a week ago that influenced how they're tasting today, and someone may have had a cheeseburger that required a little bit more, depth on the palate. So you just never know how these tastings will go. It's almost like the NCAA tournament. It's very rare that a 16 seed will beat a 1 seed, but it happened last year. You might see a 12 seed beat a 5 seed. That's a pretty regular upset, but it's very similar. We're all human and we're all impacted by our environment and the people around us. So whatever happens in this competition on the day that we bestow the world's best bourbon, just know that if it happened a week later, we could have different results. And that's this week's Above the Char. Hey, if you have an idea for Above the Char, hit me up on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Search my name, Fred Minnick. Until next week, cheers.
Welcome back to another episode of Bourbon Pursuit, the official podcast of bourbon. Kenny here today doing another cool remote interview with a distillery that I had the first opportunity of being able to try this. I remember it was at Bourbon Bonanza probably 2 years ago trying it. And then there was a second time trying it again at one of my buddy's places that were out in San Diego. And it was so unique in the taste profile as well as the finish, and being able to sort of take a breath afterwards and being like, did I just taste what I think I tasted? And it was something that I kind of had this idea, and I said, well, let me do a little bit of research, figure out more about what this company's all about. And just going through, doing a little bit of Googling and learning about our guest today, it's a pretty interesting story. And I thought it was one that's going to be worthy of getting out there to the masses, because I think once you have an opportunity to kind of know their story, hopefully then you'll be able to go and track down a bottle, try it, get a few friends together, buy a bottle and split it, whatever it is. And I think you're going to be pretty impressed to just kind of understand the story behind it and understand the process that's so unique that goes into making this particular whiskey as well. So with that, I will go ahead and introduce our guest today. So today on the show, we have Marko Karakasevic. And I know I'm probably going to screw it up again by saying it, but Marko is the master distiller and owner of Charbay whiskey out of California. So Marko, welcome to the show.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Ken. Appreciate it. It's cool.
Yeah. So it's your native name. Say your name so I don't butcher it again, so everybody knows.
Yeah, it's Marko Karakasevic.
Karakasevic. Now
it's easier after we start drinking, man. It all works out.
So what's the lineage of the name? Where's it come from?
Deal? My family's been distilling now for 13 generations. My dad's side of the family is from Serbia, from the Vojvodina Valley. So that's a big valley towards Hungary. And since 1751, my family's been recognized as a distilling family. And we had a pretty good business over there until everything got nationalized in the 60s. And then my dad said, hey, what am I going to do? So he's out. So he was the first out of 12 generations ever to leave. Made his way to the United States, made his way to California, made his way to Napa Valley. And that's where I grew up. And then he had a winemaking job up in Mendocino County, like about an hour north of Napa. And then in 1983, my mom and dad said, that's it. We're going to start our winery and distillery here in Mendocino County. And at the time there was, St. George started a year before in 82. Steve up in Clear Creek, up in Oregon. I think he started in 82 or 83, 84, but we started in 83. And at the time there was the three of us. Now there's how many micro distilleries popped up so far? About 2,000 now?
Yeah, I would say there's quite a bit
this year. Something like that. Yeah. And we started making wines and brandies traditionally. That's what my family was distilling. And growing up in a distilling family, so I was 10 in 83, and my first job in the distillery was in the still and sitting on a bucket, cleaning with a green scrubber, overhead inside the still, dripping TSP and stuff back in the day when you could do that stuff. And
it's safe, we promise. Just get in there.
Oh man, I'm done. You're not done. Like, oh man, okay, well, whatever. So I just keep going. And so we bought a brand new Prulot Charente cognac still because that's the best still in the world to make brandy. And so we had that shipped over and installed, and it's right over here. I'm using it still today. Not today, but next week. And it's nice and quiet in here today. So I grew up learning how to make brandy, traditionally 7-fraction double distillation, cognac style cognac brandy distillation. And little by little, I always had a fascination with American whiskey because we never made it. We made grappa, we made brandy and eau de vie. And so being a kid, in a distilling family, that's your life. And by high school, I was brewing beer, and little by little, I just made this Pilsner. And it was really flavorful. It was 2-row malted barley. And then I'm learning from other distilleries in the United States that whiskey is distilled from 2-row malted barley. Like, well, what do they do? What are they doing differently that I'm not doing or doing? And they're getting 2-row malted barley. They're fermenting it into a distiller's beer. And they're running that 5, 6, 7% alcohol distiller's beer through the still, collecting the alcohol, putting it in the barrel. I just had this batch of beer. It's delicious. It's got hops in it, of course, I'm like, well, why can't I just run this through the still? It's tasty. I mean, my dad's always stressed on me that, you've got to use the best quality. If you use inferior quality, you're distilling inferior quality, and you can't do that to survive. You got to make the best product possible by using the best sources possible. So I said, I asked him, like, well, if this is super delicious beer, then why can't I run it through the still and make super delicious whiskey? You can't do that. Nobody's doing that. It's got hops in it. You just don't do that. I'm like, okay. All right. So that was in the 80s, and jumped to the 90s. My dad and I had the opportunity to take 22,000 gallons of a Czech-style Pilsner lager, truly lagered, bottom fermenter, lagered at 38 degrees for 3 weeks, and just a delicious beer from a microbrewery in Northern California. And we took a tanker a week, which is 6,500 gallons per week, and we double distilled it. We were working like 3.5 weeks straight, 24 hours a day. And we ended up making 22 barrels of this.
Well, tell everybody, for the audio listeners, what this is.
Oh, this is Charbay Pilsner whiskey.
There you go.
Trophy.
So
I wish I had so much more of this.
So I definitely want to talk more about that because, but I kind of want to rewind a little bit too, because, you had mentioned that you're a 13th generation distiller. It almost kind of reminds me of like friends whose dads that are doctors, and they're like, you've got to grow up and be a doctor. You got to be a lawyer. You got to get in the family business. Did you ever have an out, or did you kind of say like, if I'm already 10 and cleaning the stills, I don't think I'm going to be getting out of this anytime soon?
Kenneth, I was getting fed, and, I was living in the house. So, so I had no choice. But, come around high school, I wanted to be a physical therapist too, because I love helping people. And I love traveling, so I wanted to be an international physical therapist. I thought that sounded pretty cool, like work here for 6 months, blast out, go somewhere else. Wow, that sounds really neat. So I went to college, UC Davis, for a year, and my dad said, when he called me one day, he's like, "What are you going to do? You're going to go off, do your own thing, or come back and work with us?" I'm like, "Well, Dad, I want to run the still, but." I need to get paid, He's like, we'll figure that out. And I was like, okay, let me finish up this term and I'm out of here. I'll come back. Came back, went to work, 10 years later, started getting paid, but I lived on the property on Spring Mountain, and I was working with my dad side by side for, my whole life, it seems like.
Almost like an indentured servant for a little bit.
Well, it was a true apprenticeship with a master. And it's pretty cool because the definition of master distiller in my family, I know it's different for everybody, but in my family, the definition is the ability to meet and exceed your instructor. And then my dad said also, make a product that the family hasn't made before in the history of our family and start selling it.
Mm-hmm. And you've kind of hit that mark a little bit.
Well, so I said, okay. We make eau de vie. We make fabulous clear distillates that show off the still, that show off the cuts, that show off the distiller, that show off the quality of the base ingredient and the aging process and everything without barrel influence. The distillate's got to be pro. If you're selling a clear spirit, in my mind, it's got to be fantastic right off the pipe.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, hey, I've been making eau de vies with my dad. We're like rum as well and brandy eau de vie, and I'm gonna make a clear whiskey, but it's gonna be in the form of an eau de vie. It's gonna have fantastic body. It's gonna have a ton of flavor. The finish is gonna last forever, and it's gonna be crystal clear. I'm gonna age it in stainless, and it's gonna be badass.
So you've got to explain to me first, like, what's an eau de vie for all of us lame people out there that are just not into the jargon that you know.
Yeah, eau de vie is a French term for water of life or clear distillate, something that gets distilled, usually a brandy from fruit. Raspberries, there's one very popular, Framboise, is fantastic. We also distilled Black Mission fig and made a fig eau de vie, which is so good. Pain in the ass to make, but fabulous. So a clear I call a clear distillates eau de vie, gotcha. Especially with the still that I use. So I had the opportunity to grab an IPA, and I bought it myself. I brought it in, double copper alembic pot distilled it, aged it in stainless for 4 years as a clear distillate, as a light whiskey. That was the category that I went into, so that I didn't have to put it in a barrel. You had to put it in for a day. So I put it in for a day, took it out because I didn't want any oak influence. And so I aged it for 4 years. Doubled and Twisted is the brand that I came up with. Doubled and Twisted is an old liquor term for you're drinking the good stuff, because in my mind, in a lot of people's minds, double distilled is better for a couple reasons. You develop body on the first run. On the second run, you concentrate the flavor of the whiskey on the second run. So if something's double distilled, it's fabulous, or potentially. And at about 160 proof, the distillate really twists, makes like a really nice tight helix spiral coming off the pipe. So back in the day when people didn't have hydrometers and they're running still and they're looking and they double distill, and then on the second run, right around 160 proof right there, it's just got a beautiful twist to it. And they're like, that's the doubled and twisted. That's the good stuff right there.
It's a good story behind it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's real. And then, so I'm running still. It's like, 4 a.m, and distillate's starting to come out on a run. And I get over where the port is, where the distillate comes off the still. And I'm like, son of a bitch, it's really doing it. So I took a picture, made that my label, got some jugs that I got, from a glass supplier, got all the cola, label approvals, formula approvals, all that stuff, and got it all done. And then we started selling it in 2009. And I told my dad, I'm like, hey, I'm selling the D&T. And he's like, congratulations, you're a goddamn master distiller.
The way you said that is just kind of like, welcome to the club.
Yep. He's like, let's drink some, smoke cigars. I'm like, hell yeah. Okay. So that was in 2009. It took me 26 years of being an apprentice from my dad. But I learned everything from my dad. And then I expanded on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's cool. That's heritage. You know, it's taking what your family tradition is and expanding on it and keeping it real and keeping it alive. And I hope to do that with my two sons as well. I've got a 7-year-old and an almost 2-year-old right now. So 14th generation already knows where the distillate comes out of the pipe. They love the bottling line. They got a full-on distillery. They got customers. I'm like, man, you guys better get into this because I need to go to Mexico. You know,
But you're not ready to retire already, then, are you?
Oh no, you know, but I do like to take a break every once in a while.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. You need a vacation, right?
Ooh, yeah. I mean, yeah, it would be nice.
So another question I kind of wanted to go back to was, you'd said that you got an IPA and you were the first person to kind of sit there and start distilling hops. Now, you don't hear this very often. And the one thing that kind of comes to mind, especially for a lot of whiskey and bourbon drinkers out there, is like, aren't you gonna like clog the still up by trying to do this? Because it isn't like a super chunky thing that you're trying to do here.
Well, I'm taking beer. Beer that you can drink. And TTB didn't really know what to do with us back in 1999. They asked, like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm distilling beer just like every other whiskey distillery on the planet.
So you've got it going through the fermentation process already, right? So it's already gone through the masher, I guess, and the cooker. And the cooker is essentially, actually, never mind. You've just got the beer, right? You don't necessarily, you're not cooking anything.
No, I've got the beer. I use my friends' microbreweries to do the beer.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got pros making pro beer for me. And then I just put it in a tanker truck and I bring it over.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's ready to roll.
Yeah. So what's because we think about it from a typical, bourbon persona. We have this idea of that it has to be 51% corn. It has to be this kind of grain breakdown. I mean, are there other grains that are going into this? Like what's your all's particular, without, in this, they're trade secrets you don't give away, but like, is there a breakdown of types of grains that you use to go into this particular beer?
It's 2-row malted barley.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's a recipe from the brewery. So, for example, I make a whiskey distilled from Big Bear Black Stout. And it's a specific recipe. It's got 6 different roasted and toasted barley malts, 2 different adjuncts, 2 different hops in it. So it's a delicious, complex beer. And as a result, when you distill delicious, you concentrate delicious.
I mean, because that was honestly going to be my next question, was that you did a Pilsner. I was like, what other beers have you tried?
Yeah. Well, the Pilsner was working really well. So that's when I decided that. Well, plus, when we made the Pilsner the first time, that microbrewery decided to focus on wine instead of focusing on wine and beer. So they shut their brewery down. So I was like, oh man, what am I going to do? I got to go to a different brewery to find beer. At that time as well, we started making fresh picked fruit flavored vodkas, like real flavored vodka out of ruby red grapefruit and blood oranges and Meyer lemons. And that blew up because there was no ultra premium vodka in the market. Excuse me. Kettle One was the ultra premium back then and still a fabulous vodka, but no one was making really fantastic fresh picked fruit flavored vodkas back then. So we started doing that and it blew up. And at the time, it was only mom, dad, and me, no employees, So I was making everything, selling everything, flying all over the place. So it was wild. And then around 2005, I started feeling more pressure on the vodka side. And I said, man, I got to get back. I got to start running the still, start making some more whiskeys. And so I needed to find another microbrewery to fulfill my orders. And so I said, well, I love Racer 5 IPA. And Barry Republic Brewery is like 20 minutes away. So I went down there and we had like a 4-hour little visit. And now I just text them and get tankers.
There you go. That's easy enough.
That's cool, dude. That is so cool. They're like, whatever you want to do. You want to come back and you want to tweak the recipe? You want to do this? You want to do this? I'm like, oh my God. I mean, they're the nicest people to work with, the Norgroves from Barry Republic Brewery. And everyone, their staff, is just a real treat and pleasure to be able to work with them like this.
Mm-hmm.
So cool.
Yeah. And so, you kind of you're kind of like outsourcing some of the steps there a little bit, right?
I can't do everything, man. It's just like, even today, after 35 years, we're a team of 7 people.
Mm-hmm.
I have no loans. I have no investors. I make product. I sell product. I buy more glass. I buy more ingredients, and I'm making a living. My family's making a living, and my employees are making a living. And, here we are.
Absolutely. So the other thing that kind of was a little different was when you said that you aged it in stainless. Kind of talk about that, because if we think about it a little bit from a bourbon side of the house, one of the most famous stainless aged products or stainless products that have been out there for the longest time was Sazerac 18 from Buffalo Trace, where they had started putting it in the tank back in 2000. I can't remember. It's 2004, 2008, and then maybe 2005. I can't remember. But then I think it was 2015 or 2016 is when they actually ran out of the stainless. And the idea was that it consistently holds this flavor over time. However, there are other people out there that says, oh no, it changes a little bit in the tank. So kind of give your thoughts on aging in a stainless steel tank.
For a barrel-aged product to then be aged in stainless before it gets bottled?
Well, that was an example that maybe a lot of bourbon people can relate to, but your particular
for my doubled and twisted thesis.
Yeah, your process that it goes through for your aging.
Yeah, for that. Well, for the doubled and twisted, for my liquid thesis, so to speak, I wanted to not have any barrel age influence whatsoever. I wanted to showcase the distillate. And when you have something and you let it rest for years in stainless, all the flavors that you've just distilled out, they're all shattered. They're all scattered. They need time for themselves to line up in their unique pattern to make a longer chain of flavor. And if you have the luxury of time to age a distillate before you put it in the bottle and send it out, it just makes a better quality product. Because if you distill something a week before you distilled that beer, it was beer, and a couple weeks before that it was water, some yeast, and a ton of grain. It's going through some massive physical changes, from being grain to being boiled with water to being fermented once and then sublimated and boiled out, and it's just really important to give it time. What we did with the Pilsner whiskey is we distilled it in 99 and we put it in brand new oak barrels for 6 years. And in the 6 years, it really extracted all the colors and flavors of the barrels. And now you have that oak influence. Now you have this flavorful whiskey. Let's let it ride. Let's put it together. So then we took it out of the barrel because I didn't want to over oak it. There's plenty of over oaked products in the world. And so I took it out of the barrel and we put it in a stainless tank after barrel aging for 8 more years. And
wow, that's a lot of time.
Yeah. And after that, I mean, what that 8 years did is it allowed the whiskey to interact with all the oak influence and everything started to line up in its own unique pattern, and it developed a longer chain of flavor.
Mm-hmm. And that was then
called double aging.
And so that was in your Charbay whiskey Pilsner releases, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And how many of those have you had?
5 releases of that stuff.
And
go
ahead.
We're out of it now. I mean, our last barrel was barrel number 16. I was holding it for Joe Montana because in the beginning he was buying like single bottles of our whiskey one release and stuff. And my friend's like, "Hey, you just missed Joe. He was just in the store." I'm like, "God damn it! Tell him I said hi." And then like a week later, he's like, at a different store, like, "Oh, Joe just came by, bought another bottle of your whiskey." I'm like, "Oh shit! Can you tell him I said hi?" And we never got to hang out in the distillery, but maybe there's some time. But anyways, I had this barrel number 16. I'm like, I'm gonna let that one ride. Maybe Joe's gonna pick it up. Who knows? And anyways, we barrel aged that one straight all the way through for 16 years. And
wow.
We're in a dry environment here, so we lose about 4% evaporation per barrel a year. So we got we use 225 liters, so that's 59 gallons, and we had about 12 cases out of that barrel.
Wow, it's not too much, is it?
No, I kept most of it for myself, but we did release some of that, and then the whiskey release, Pilsner whiskey from '99, release number 4 was a half barrel as well. A great bourbon whiskey club bought it, but they only bought half a barrel, and then so I let it ride. It was in the barrel for 12 years, and then I aged it for another year and a half, and then bottled that and released that, and that was super. And then going back to the whiskey 3 release, that was the 6 years in the barrel, 8 years in the tank at full strength. 132 proof. And then the release 2 was 6 years in the barrel, diluted to 110 proof, aged in the tank for 6 years. So, and then bottled when it was 12 years old total, but 6 and 6 and at 110 proof. That was the lot number 2. And then lot number 1 was, it was in the barrel for 2 years. I'm like, oh my God, it is so ready. Let's pick a barrel. I'm like, oh, that barrel looks good. That barrel looks good. Let's try them, blend them together. Oh my God, that's it. And we launched it, and that was Pilsner 1.
Now so it seems like you waited longer and longer for each one of these, or was it just like the one-time distillate run, and then it
was the one-time run.
Yeah.
And then I've since then started distilling more Czech style Pilsner. So we started up again in 2015. So it's 3 years in the barrel so far, and it's coming along great. You know, I used some of it to, I had to because it was so good. I make this. This is the newest release of Doubled and Twisted, and this is a blend of that 3-year Pilsner and 3-year straight malt whiskey, this pure 2-row malted barley whiskey, and 7-year stout French oak aged whiskey. So it's a blend of all 3 of those to make a 10-barrel blend. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. And it's 90 proof too. It drinks like water. I've never released a whiskey so low before, and it kind of gets you in trouble a little bit.
That's all right. It's
you make
it gets the best of us. It gets the best of us sometimes.
Yeah, I drink it, and it's like, oh man, what's going on here? It's like stuff's kind of trying to mess with me. It's pretty cool.
It's 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I also kind of want to talk about is because since this process is so different than just anybody that's doing 4 Roses, Heaven Hill, Maker's Mark, and you're using you talked about going through the Ttb Formula Process. What was that like? Like, how did you get a category or anything that was sort of deemed okay in this? Because I've gone through and looked at what it takes to even just file a COLA, And I looked at even filing a formula. And for most of us that are listening to this podcast and drinkers, 90% of what we're going to be drinking is probably going to be straight bourbon whiskey, straight rye whiskey, stuff like that, where you don't need to file that sort of stuff. And the stuff that we don't really care about are the ones that have to file for new formulas, because these are the ones that are straight rye whiskeys that are blended with Mountain Dew or something like that. That's totally crazy. That comes from, that's sold in Australia or something like that. So kind of talk about the formula process. Bourbon Pursuit wouldn't be possible without the support of our Patreon community and with help of our following partners. Stepping through those gates of whiskey prison, it's like taking a step back in time. Southern Grace Distilleries at Mount Pleasant Prison hasn't made any updates to the structure of the prison since it moved in 2016. The flickering lights in the background, the faint sound of water dripping in the distance, a gush of steam, and the clanging of a wrought iron door. That's what the guys at Rack House Whiskey Club experienced when they visited to see what's being distilled inside. Beyond the impressive story, they found some really good whiskey. The next Rack House Whiskey Club box ships in April, so choosing what to feature was a difficult decision. But they're excited to be featuring the double gold medal award-winning Conviction Small Batch Bourbon. It's the first bourbon ever to legally be aged behind bars. And they also get a bottle of their Sundog Pink Lemonade, which was named the 2017 USA Spirited Lemonade of the Year. Rack House Whiskey Club is a Whiskey of the Month club, and they're on a mission to uncover the best flavors and stories that craft distilleries across the U.S. have to offer. Rack House's box ships out every 2 months to 40 states, and along with bottles, includes some cool merchandise. Go to rackhousewhiskeyclub.com to check it out and taste the freedom of whiskey prison. Use code PURSUIT for $25 off your first box. Kind of talk about the formula process.
Working with the Ttb is fabulous. They are great. And they're extremely busy these days with all the with all the different distilleries that are popping up. It's you just got to get into it and do it. And it's getting better. I mean, there's automation now. We don't have to just mail things into Cincinnati, Ohio anymore with the mail and wait for things to happen. They're online, and there's formulas online and colas online, and it's getting better and better and better, and a little faster turnaround. It's still not easy, but it's worth the time doing it. And,
well, what's your particular formula that they had to categorize this under? Is it still like a blended whiskey? Is it a straight blended whiskey? Like what do they consider it?
They considered it flavored whiskey. And with the flavored whiskey, they say that you have to declare the dominant flavor. And back in '99, they're like, "Is there hops?" And they're like, "Oh hell yeah, there's hops in there." Like, okay, well then you have to call this hop flavored whiskey. I'm like, "Well, I don't want to call it hop flavored whiskey. That's a horrible name." They're like, "Well, do you want to make it?" I said, "Yeah, I want to make it." They're like, "Well, then you got to call it hop flavored whiskey." Okay, hop flavored whiskey.
So that's like the official category of what it is.
That is the class of spirit, hop flavored whiskey.
And is there anybody else that's doing this as well that you know of?
I think there's more and more distilleries distilling from delicious beer. It's bound to happen more. We're kind of grandfathered into the old school style of what hop flavored whiskey is because no one was doing it before us. So it's getting a little bit more technical with new formulas, but that's just the evolution of a spirit class. And we're in, and I'm sure other people are going to do it. They should. I mean, it makes total sense in my mind to do it.
I can see that too. So, another thing,
possibilities are wide open, It's 12,000 styles of beer.
So how many styles are you going to try to do?
Well, I like contrast, So I distill Czech style Pilsner lager, a very complex, delicious stout, and a big West Coast IPA, Racer 5.
Are you more of an IPA person, a Pilsner, stout? What's your go-to?
Oh man, Tough call.
When you're not drinking whiskey, of course.
Yeah. I just like good things. There's delicious. I mean, there's so many delicious IPAs out here. The stouts are fantastic. There's one a local brewery about 45 minutes away, North Coast. I mean, they're doing amazing stouts. I love Big Bear Black Stout from Bear Republic. I like Czech style Pilsner a lot, and it's really hard to find a really good, like, true European tasting Pilsner, Czech style Pilsner with the Saaz hops, bottom fermenting yeast, truly lagered at 38 degrees for weeks, and then bottled. It's hard to beat for me.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you. So I do have another kind of question. It might be a little bit hairy, but I think you can work your way out of it. So there always are some people that are big snobs in the whiskey world, right? And they look at some of the things that you've been doing with Charbay, and they say that's not a true whiskey. Like, I'm not going to drink. That's not a true whiskey. What's your kind of response to that?
I wish I had more of what I made.
Yeah.
And I'm sad that I don't have much of this left. And if someone doesn't want to drink it, there's no gun to their head.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff on the market, so I'm sure they could find some other way.
Plenty of other fantastic product over there that'll make them happy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm busy, and it's a real treat to be able to be busy and have 7 people on staff and doing what we want to do and making product the way we want to make it. And we're not having an issue with finding customers.
Mm-hmm. Nope, that's good though.
They don't want to drink it. Don't drink it, man. Don't worry. No worries.
There you go. All those barrels, everybody that's going to be able to watch this on video, he's got a bunch of barrels in the background. That's just more for him and his friends, I guess, at the end of the day.
I make more than I can drink now. It's awesome. I don't know if you can tell, but some of these are bigger barrels. I'm going bigger. A lot of people, it seems like, are going smaller because there's more oak extraction, faster extraction, not faster maturation, because that's time, but faster extraction. And, these barrels are 500 liters, so like 132 gallons.
Oh, wow.
So
that's huge.
Yeah, buddy. They're pungent barrels. And they're French oak, and they are just absolutely fantastic because I want to taste the whiskey that's in the barrel, not totally the barrel. So for my program, it's working out fantastically.
And so what's aging in those? Is that your next releases of Charbay whiskey that'll be coming out?
I've got some 17 Pilsner. I've got some 18 Mendo Blendo. That's another story we can talk about. And I've got some straight malt whiskey in there as well.
There you go.
So cool. I mean, some of these, some of these are going to be my son's college tuition barrels,
Mm-hmm.
and let some of them ride for 18, 25 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, they're big barrels, so there should be enough liquid in there that they could withstand 4% a year.
I might, consolidate after every 5 years or something like that, and just keep them so that there's, not at the end of the day, like 5 gallons hanging out in the bottom of it, do some consolidation, but not every year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's exciting.
You're in for the long haul. That's for sure. So,
yeah. So who are these people that don't want to drink the Charbay?
I'm not throwing names on.
Let's bring them online, or have them give me a call, or maybe they just need to come over to Mendocino County and to see what else is going on. Because, we'll put a blindfold on them and go, it's okay. It's not traditional. It's not, if you think it's not real whiskey, call it something else and just drink it. You'll like it.
Yeah, because when you say it's not traditional, this is something that before we started recording and kind of talking about was one of the times that I had tried this. I was at my buddy's place and I tried it and I was like, yeah, it's pretty good. And he goes, but now breathe in, and you just do this like, and you do it. And I was like, is that did they brew this with marijuana? Like, how does this taste like pot?
Yeah, hops and weed. They're all kind of similar, but they got that green herb spice in it. It's fabulous.
It was very unique to be able to do that. And it was something that we were even talking about beforehand of the day could possibly come that it's already coming to Canada that you could be mixing marijuana and whiskey probably relatively soon.
Yeah, if the U.S. clears it, and it's all good to go, and then it's all good to go, and it would all be good to go. But not. I'm not expecting that to happen anytime soon. So it's got to keep them separated.
The Offspring, absolutely good song. So there was another question that I kind of want to ask about too, because if I would have known that there was going to be no more of these ever going to find on the shelves for quite a while, I probably would have grabbed it. But I remember being in the store and seeing it. But it has a pretty high price tag on it too, right? You're not like a $50 bottle when it comes to these Charbay releases.
Not the 19-year-old Pilsner.
No.
I think that's more about $4.50 a bottle now, which is still less than a lot of people releasing younger whiskeys out there. I travel around the U.S. doing some sales, and I found 4 of the Gold Top whiskey ones at this one store, and they were about $2.95 a bottle. Or I said, I'll give you $1,200 cash for all 4 of these. And the guy's like, "Oh my God, really?" Like, yeah, they've been here for 10 years, and you don't want them. He's like, okay. I got those. I stole them pretty much, and chatted up on some friends, and they found a home in 7 minutes. So it was pretty cool. It was fun doing that. This product, the Doubled and Twisted, this is 90 proof, and it retails for $50.
So there you go. So there is something that is middle of the road for everybody else.
Yeah, it's kind of my business card. This bottle definitely overperforms for $50 retail. It fits a little more for my friends on the on-premise. It fits cocktail programming for whiskeys a little better. And it's just fun to do. We have inventory now, and so we can do 10-barrel releases of this at a time now.
Absolutely.
There was this one account, and they were super excited about our whiskeys, and they brought all 4 different releases out, and something happened, and they messed up the pricing on this, and my friend was like, "I'm drinking Manhattans with your whiskey 3." I'm like, "Damn, high roller, there you go." I mean, that's gotta be like $120 cocktail. He's like, $13. I'm like, oh, really? So it was Friday. I'm like, "Come on, guys." And I took the crew to lunch at this place where it was happening, and we were just sitting down having lunch, and I said, "Oh, can I get 2 Manhattans with the Charbay whiskey 3? And they're like, "Sure, why not?" And they pour it, and we have lunch and everything, and we get the bill, and everyone's like, "How much were they?" I'm like, "Ugh." They're like, "What?" Like, "Oh, they weren't $13."
They fixed it. They fixed the glitch.
Yeah, $12.
Oh no, man.
I was like, "Oh my God, you guys are losing some money." But the next day, I called our distributor. I called the guys up at the restaurant. I'm like, "Hey, something happened, but let's see what we can do to offset your losses right there." And we got it situated and cleared up again. But I would never do that with my whiskey 3. But it was fun to do.
Right. That's funny though. That's at least it was there. I was expecting you to say, "Oh, nope, they were actually $100 and something now."
Yeah, I've never paid under $85 a shot for the whiskey 3. So this was a blast. we're making more of it, and it's pretty cool. We've sold, actually, we've already sold a couple barrels to the bourbon clubs as a 3-year-old, and it is on its way to becoming the next Pilsner release. It's exciting.
Are you looking to sell those barrels and they'll continue to age, like just pre-selling them? Is that the goal, or are they buying it and bottling at 3?
Bottling at 3. So it's almost like the whiskey one, where it was only in the barrel for 2 years. So this has exceeded that. It's 3 years, and it gives me flashbacks of when that Pilsner was young in the barrel. It's pretty cool. I've got about 40 barrels of it now. So we're going to make another batch of that in January when it gets nice and cold out.
Is there a reason why you go for January instead of, I mean, it doesn't really matter. You're in California. It's 70 and sunny all the time, but
yeah, we're just slammed right now. We do other things as well, like custom bottling. We've got the other barrels to pull out for barrel clubs that we're selling barrels to, and the timing of it, I can't. I run my still myself. There's nobody else that runs my still. My dad will help, but I was trained, and the way I run is I run 24 hours a day when I run the still, and it takes me 10 days straight, 24 hours a day to knock out a run. So that's a chunk of time that I have to be pulled away from running our bottling line or doing everything else, running the show. So gotta pick like a half a month to just block off and go, oh, you're not going to see me. I'm going to be right here for, the next 10 days straight.
Well, I'm glad you could make some time for us. Is there any sort of growth plans with that to be able to kind of have consistent releases of this going out? We'll see. To be determined.
Yeah, I'm distilling when I can. This year I distilled a lot as far as Charbay goes. I had the opportunity to pick up 27,000 gallons from another microbrewery right here in town. And I was running for like forever. It felt like 2 months, because now running 10 days straight, 24 hours a day is tough. You sleep like 2 hours at a time and stuff. And I've got a wife and, 2 kids now and a business running. So it's, I don't get to do just straight 10-day bomber runs. So my 10-day turns into 15, 16 days. So it's a half a month, running this thing. And, it's slow, but that's okay because it makes fantastic product. And that's what it's all about. I mean, I don't have a column still. I don't have a hybrid still. I have a true 1,000,000 BTU live fire copper pot still. And it's slow and inefficient, but like I said, you focus on the body on the first run, and then you focus on the flavor on the second run. And as a result, you're going to make something that's got a ton of body, that can have a lot of flavor in it, that can handle barrel aging and not be, not fall apart after time, because, the oak influence took over and the flavor just drops off like a rock. That doesn't happen with our spirits because we distill it. We do a double distillation in a copper pot still. I mean, I love column stills. I think they're great. They get top note. They're efficient, and many different types of people can run them. But it's just for making whiskey and rum and brandy, I'm happy with mine.
Oh, awesome. So I got 2 more questions to kind of wrap this up here. So talk about the name Charbay. I don't think I actually asked why, what's the name? What's it originate from? What's it mean?
Charbay, back in 1985, in the winery, we had wines and we had brandies, and no one was really drinking high-end brandy made in California in the 80s. So we were trying to figure out, what are we going to do with this? And so we made wine, we had brandy. And so what do? you blend them together. So we took a dry Chardonnay wine that we made, and then we took our brandy and sweetened it into a liqueur and blended that brandy liqueur with a dry Chardonnay wine. And we made a product, a fortified wine, similar in style to a Pinot de Chiron. And we did that in 85, and we're trying to come up with a name. And we took CHAR from Chardonnay and BAY from brandy liqueur and fused the two products, fused the two words, came up with Charbay. And it's a lot easier to say than Karakasevic. So
second that one. I'll second that.
I'm like, hey, why don't we just name the whole distillery and winery Charbay? And if someone brutalizes the word Charbay, I don't care.
Yes.
My damn last name. So it's stuck.
Real cool. And so last one, if anybody's out there trying to find a bottle or even hunt down something of one of the Charbay 1 through 5 releases, I mean, California, is that probably the only place? Can you find it in any other states? Where would you be able to find this?
Might be some in Texas, New York, Missouri, California. I don't think any of it made it over in Florida, but
I can't recall if I saw it one time in Tennessee as well.
We did send some. We were sending some Charbay whiskey through to Tennessee, and man, every time that little order went out, I'm like, "Oh, that is awesome, man! We're sending California whiskey back to Tennessee," and that was just that. I really appreciated that. That was cool.
Yeah, I do remember there was one store where now that it crosses my mind, I remember seeing it and saying, "I don't know, I'll maybe some other time," but. Now that I know, I was like, damn it, I should go back and get it.
That bottle might still be there. You know,
we'll see. Might make a phone call to somebody. Go check it out.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Marko, I want to say thank you again for coming on the show today. I do want to also give you the opportunity to plug if anybody wants to figure out if you've got a visitor center, people can see the distillery or follow you on social media. Where would they do that?
Well, we don't really have tours set up at all here because I can't sell retail direct or anything like that to anybody. So it hasn't really made too much sense for us to do, unfortunately. But we do Facebook. My wife Jenny has that. I should have that. Maybe I can text her real quick. But yeah, we have Facebook and we have Instagram. And our website is charbay.com, CHARBAY.com.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
You know, yeah, someone can go to our website and we could, we do our best to find a store that is near them or that could ship to them legally inside or outside of the U.S.
There you go. So if you're interested, go ahead and do that and get in touch with Jenny or Marko, and I'm sure they're happy to try to figure out a way to sell you some whiskey. And Instagram is at Charbay Distillery. So that's how you can find them.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, she's actually in the chat. She's actually in the chat, and she's telling me. And then Twitter is just at Charbay. So there we go.
Thanks, Jenny.
And Facebook is at Charbay Distillery as well. So once again, Marko, thanks for joining, and make sure you follow Charbay on all those social media channels. Make sure you follow us as well, Bourbon Pursuit on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can see what we're drinking. Who knows? Might be a bottle of Charbay soon. We'll see what happens.
Well, maybe we have to get you a sample bottle over there and put it right next to Mr. Russell's stuff right there.
Hey, wouldn't say no to that. That's for sure.
Thank you. Right on.
Absolutely. And if you do like the show, you want to hear more interesting stories of distilleries that we've tried and found quite interesting, go ahead and support the show, patreon.com, patreon.com/Bourbon Pursuit. And if you have any other show suggestions, hate mail, fan mail, anything like that, team@bourbonpursuit.com. With that, we will see everybody next week. Cheers.